Kedra Cardell, and I am one of your district-wide testing coordinators. Thank you all for being here. I know it was kind of yucky this morning driving into work, but we all made it, so thank you so much. I'm going to open up with some announcements, and then we will get started. Just know a copy of this presentation can be found on our website under Coordinator Resources at assessment.dallasicd.org. So that's the link you can use to open the presentation so that we can get started. Yes. Oh, to get us started, this is your first time and you've taken over the responsibility as being the lead campus testing coordinator. Alrighty then. As you all are aware, Lena retired in December. So Karen Byers, she will be taking on the role of test security officer.
You get a big raise?
What an upgrade. You should know.
Hire someone.
Yeah, they got so excited before I could finish that part. So right now, if you have any test security concerns, forward them directly to her. And then we'll tell you once we hire someone else. High schools, the December EOC scores are set to arrive this week. Scores will be posted to my data portal. We will send an email when they arrive. Also, so if you once you review your scores, and if there's a discrepancy in the score coding, please contact us by January the 24th, which is next Friday. Also, high schools, the CEPA application, CEPA CBE application deadline is January the 31st. So please adhere to that deadline. Everyone, remember you started receiving emails, we started sending them out about capturing the years in U.S. schools. So if you haven't been receiving emails lately, that means that your campus is not showing any students who have a discrepancy. So we know we're entering the TELPAS season, right? So that's when this information is so important. It must be captured during TELPAS. If for any reason that you are still receiving an email, please work with your LPAC person to clear up those discrepancies so that those students' information can be uploaded correctly. You can enter that student's information correctly into the Pearson Access Next system. The designated supports window opens up tomorrow. So this little peek sheet that you received is like a quick guide to get into my data portal. We're also asking that you will review with your campus the designated, the policy presentation that we did in September. We have some extra policy documents. If you would like some, know what the designated supports, and you want some extra copies, we do have extra copies you can take to your campus. But it's important that you will review with your campus what it means to input a certain designated support so they're not just doing all of them. Elementary, you're only entering designated supports for STAR. There are no designated supports that you can enter for Terra Nova. Okay, so you're only entering designated supports for STAR, none for Terra Nova, because we always get that call or that lovely email to say, what designated supports can we enter for Terra Nova? Nada. Okay, so none.
So does anyone ever look at the designated supports and say, oh my, this campus or this teacher or this whatever?
From our side?
Or for me, I don't know who would, I guess, I don't know. No, okay.
Not from our side. The hope and goal is if the committees are meeting and doing it, then from your side, you all are looking at it to make sure. That's why the principal has to go in and approve them.
Right.
Otherwise, if they're not approved, then.
Right, no.
So that's the process to look at it. Also, elementary campuses, there were several requests for ACP language corrections this past December. We're asking that you create a system to curtail this error before STAR, because you know it can impact the campus's CEI and the teacher's TEI. So come up with some kind of system to ensure that the students who are tested in English, that is marked appropriately, compared to the students that are tested in Spanish. For ACP, for us from the district level, it was a little simple process to kind of just go and rescan, but for TEA, we have to go through a more detailed process. So again, it is a testing irregularity for the campus, but if you go ahead and start working now, then you should have that issue in the fall. I'm sorry, now in the spring. And we're just suggesting to testing coordinators that you might want to bubble the English-Spanish bubble before disseminating the test documents to the testing administrators. Yes,
Can you put that bubble on the ACP Scantrons? Because that would help a lot.
it's on the header. So
I
you
know
have to-
on the header,
But no, it's
but when
on.
you got all these small groups and you're trying to put them back, that's when the mistakes happen. It's very easy for.
But let me say this from the positive. We have more that do it right than we have that do it wrong. So therefore, that's telling us based on the data that you just have to come up with a system to be able to deal with it. So because our system is we put it on the header to put the right you put the right answer document on the right header. So that's for all the ACPs. But then let's just come, as we're moving forward to STAR, let's come up with a plan for our campuses to be able to address that. If you have not turned in your ACP surveys to the service center, they are due now. Please drop them off at the service center on Irving. We appreciate your feedback. From your feedback, we've decided to go in and look at some of our forms and things and make some adjustments, so we do appreciate that. If you're one of the 4 schools that are participating in next school year, please see Fred Washington if you have any questions about that. Now, yes, ma'am.
Where are those policy forms you said we have remaining from?
It's back here. We'll bring
Catch it at the end.
policy block. We'll have them available to you.
Okay.
Now is the time to submit any special testing accommodations for TEA approval. For example, if a student needs extra day, complex transcribe in mathematics scribe, or it may be a special situation for TELPAS administration, then now is the time. You need to contact our office so that we will be aware, because what happens is TEA sends Karen an email and she needs to know if she needs to approve it or not so that they can process it, because they won't process it until after she's approved it, and if she's not aware of it, she's not able to approve it. This is the other important part. You received an email this week about your Star All 2. Students that were eligible for Star All 2 were registered on December the 23rd. That was an early deadline for the state. These students should get first priority when tested. We will make an additional request for more books for newly enrolled students and those with IEP changes closer to the testing window. So if you looked at when you reviewed your list and you noticed that there were some students that were missing, and you know based on the IEP, those students should be testing Star All 2, and they were not on the list. There was not a book ordered for them. You will receive more information as we get closer, so that you will, when the window opens, you will order additional materials for those particular students, because the state requires that we have 1 book per student in the book and name batches, okay? And before we get started, I think that's it for me. Remember, if you have not signed in on one of the computers at the end here, please do so. Download, follow along on your computer. The presentation can be found at our website under Coordinator Resources. So go ahead and download it, and that way you will have it. Oh no, I forgot one other thing. I have to go through my your handouts. You received your agenda, correct? Everybody received your agenda. It's a green one. Then you have something that's titled Section 504 and Start Alternate. These are training sessions that the district is offering. Please share with your 504 chairperson and your SPED chairperson to ensure that their people have signed up for this. So this is just information that we received from the district. You also received something that says Elementary Campuses Power School. These are your LEP codes for your students, for your LEP students on your campus, your EL students, your English learners. Remember, only EL students participate in TELPAS testing. EL students, non-EL students, including parent denials, do not participate in TELPAS testing. I'm sorry. I just said, let me break that. Non-EL students do not participate in TELPAS testing. Parent denials do participate in TELPAS testing. I had to correct that. Thank y'all for helping. Like, no, Stanley.
They are awake.
They are. So, you see the codes that say non-EL, it's like 33, 44, 55. Those are your opt-ins. Again, they do not participate. They may be in that bilingual classroom, but because they are non-EL, they will not participate in TELPAS testing, okay? So make sure you make note of that. The other forms, I already talked about the pink form, which was your MyJada form. And you should have received a rater manual. We only made one copy. Remember this manual this year, the state put it online. So if you want additional copies of the rater manual, hey, you can use this to make duplicate copies, or you can download it. It's actually on our website too, under TELPAS, under Assessments in TELPAS, and you can download your rater manual. You did receive your TELPAS alternate and your TELPAS test administrator manuals, correct? Okay, so some of the information from the rater manual is in those manuals as well. There's a TELPAS alternate ~ISD reference guide. When we go to the TELPAS alternate towards the end of our presentation, then we will talk about this, as well as the TELPAS alternate participation requirements. And that's this thick packet. Okay, so we will review that toward the end of our presentation. Did I hit all the handouts that y'all have? Oh, well, one more. This is our campus's template for our campus TELPAS plan. So we will talk about this at the end because you're going to get to start creating your plan today. I think that's it that I have. It is okay. If you have a question that you would like to ask us during the meeting, the Go Soapbox link is under meeting resources. Also, this is a reminder, we had a lot of schools that returned their ACP, elementary schools that returned their ACP materials. They mixed up the 1-2 materials and the 3-5. Remember, 1-2 was supposed to be separate from the 3-5. So if you got an email from us, then you will need to go to the service center and correct everything. If you have not sent your materials off because you're still in the midst of makeup testing, please make sure you pack your materials separate. Keep your 1-2 materials separate from your 3-5 materials. Okay? Everybody clear with that? Now, Keisha is about to come and do her parts, and I'll see you all toward the end.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Keisha Pearson, and we're going to dive into this and try to get you going on your way at a good time. Okay, so our agenda is going to start with the same thing we always start with, and that's a reminder that this training does not take the place of reading the manuals and not following any other TEA district campus guidelines and other district procedures. So we do our best to summarize everything for you in these PowerPoints, so there are a lot of slides, but that does not let you off the hook from doing your homework. So you've got a lot of manuals, a lot of other stuff that we'll be sending you, and you are responsible within your own time frames to read that, and that will help you. We just cannot possibly cover every single thing and read to you in weeks. Okay, so our agenda is going to cover these 2 points. I'm going to talk about just the generic basics of TELPAS, what it is, what it measures, who it tests. We'll go over some test security components. Felicia will come and do the next 2 things for the holistic ratings. I'll remind you of some responsibilities that you're going to have to put that together. And Lakedra will close it out with TELPAS alternate, and then we have an activity for you that'll get you to first base once you get back to your campuses and start planning. Okay, so for the first thing, TELPAS is a federal and state mandated test that we have to do to measure your English language norms. And we cover 4 domains, and that is going to be listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So the students who are flagged to take that in kindergarten and first grade are going to take a holistically rated test in those 4 domains, and they're also going to have some classroom observations and student interactions. And Felicia will go into a lot of detail with what your teachers are going to do to capture that. For your older students in grades 2, maybe up to 6, they will have 3 different components. The first will be an online reading test, and they have it grouped in different clusters. So for elementary, you'll be covered under a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and possibly a 6th grade cluster. And for the listening and speaking domains, those tests are going to be grouped in grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 6 will be with 6 through 8. And then finally, you will have a big deal with your writing samples, and again, we'll give you some updates on how to assemble and collect those. Okay, so first, who takes TELPAS? And that is going to be all the EL students we have flagged in grades kinder through 12. We assess them 1 time a year, and that time is coming up. And it is going to include those who, your parent denials, those who do not want their kids in the bilingual BSL programs, your LEP students on homebound, and your foreign exchange students that we identify as LEP from the intake center, okay? However, we are not going to test exited students who have graduated, so to speak, from the program, and those will be flagged in Power School with the code of E0, or your opt-in students, okay? And we have some coding for those. You'll highlight 33, 44, 55, and 66. Okay, anyone on your LEP rosters with those codes are not going to take TELPAS. Okay, we do have 2 exceptions to taking TELPAS, and that will be the case where you've got an EL receiving special education services. And in that predicament, a decision needs to be made in a joint effort with the ARC committee and the LPAC team. Okay? Participation has to be considered on a domain-by-domain basis, so they've got to cover all 4 components and have documentation for those. They do need some reasons for why the student cannot be assessed in that domain, and it needs to be supported with different examples, academically and medically possibly. And this decision is only applicable for an EL receiving, again, SPED services and who is not eligible for TELPAS Alt. Okay, so for TELPAS Alt, as with Start Alt 2, that's going to indicate some cognitive disabilities. All right, it's important to note that special administrations of the TELPAS online test are available with TEA approval, and that might allow the student a chance to be successful, and we'll have some reminders of when we start to need those requests to get that in on time from TEA. The other case would be if you have an EL, an English learner, from another Texas school district, let's say Duncanville, we get a lot of kids from Irving, Mesquite, or somewhere from another state, Oklahoma, maybe another country. If they enroll on or after February 24th, okay, the first day of the window, okay, so you're going to circle this on your calendar. If you brought this, you brought your planner with you, definitely highlight that. Okay, 2 things. They are not going to be assessed by the receiving district in the holistically rating domains. So if we get these kids on February 24th or afterwards, we're not going to be responsible to test them on the holistically rated domains. And if we get some new kids in grades 2 through 12 on the same time, we are required to do the TELPAS reading test and the listening and speaking test. Okay, so we'll have some reminders throughout the window for that. Okay, so real quick, we're going to give y'all a pop quiz. This is to get out, make sure I think you catch it on. Okay, how many domains will TELPAS test for language learners? 4. Okay. How many times per year are we going to test these kids? 1. Okay, and what type of learner is going to be flagged to take TELPAS? ELs. Okay, and if they were exited from an art last fall, are they going to be grouped in a testing environment for the spring? No, we're going to let them go. Okay, we do have some test security components. We're never off the hook for test security. I won't get too close. Okay, so we're again with this potentially in danger of having a serious irregularity or a procedural irregularity if we have some folks not doing their job or sleep at the wheel. So on the serious side, you've seen these before. That can be where someone is assisting directly students with answering the questions or giving them answers, tampering with student responses. If somebody is receiving or providing unallowable assistance during calibration activities, and that could be taking notes, passing answers around, or providing answer sheets. If somebody falsifies a holistic rating based on the student responses or the actual response that the student gave. If someone witnesses a test irregularity and they do not report it. So if they look the other way, that's a problem. And lastly, viewing secure testing content before, during, or after administration without approval by TEA. Okay, so no sneak peeks. Now with procedural irregularities, not much difference here than what we've dealt with in the fall. And that would be ineligibility and IEP errors, not keeping track of your secure testing materials, leaving classrooms not attended. If we have a student that was issued the wrong test materials or got a testing ticket for another kid, maybe we have a lot of students with the first name Daniel, okay, so we want to not mix those up. If we have a kid, they're just running wild and they've got their phones out and what is this new thing, the Nintendo light thing? They got all their little gaming things out and not told to put those up. And this third from the bottom, if students were permitted to test beyond the allowable time, okay, that's a problem. And to clarify that, TELPAS on one side is not a timed test, but it is built out where it can be completed, all the components can be done pretty much in one sitting and possibly one day. So the key for that is don't start a kid at a time where they won't have a chance to finish. So most elementaries, for example, are going to have their end of school bell around 3:15. It would be very bad to start that student testing at 2 o'clock. Okay, that's not going to make any sense, and they're not going to have a fair chance to potentially finish. And one point that came out yesterday, if they are going beyond the school day, okay, the cutoff point is the end of the school day, that dictates another testing day that has to have approval. Okay, so most of us do pretty good that I've seen, so you want to start early in the day to make sure if they are needing more time, usually a school day works out. Okay, if a kid was not permitted to, if the test administrators, all right, if the test administrators were caught using their cell phones as an issue, and then I skipped over, students were not permitted to test during the allowable time frame, okay? So you've got to capture everybody in the appropriate windows. Okay, so to continue with test security, these points, no one can receive or provide answers to student profiles during TELPAS calibration or activities. So we'll have to go with what we got after certain cutoffs. No one can use answer sheets or notes that contain answers to complete TELPAS calibration activities. Everyone participating in the student assessment program must maintain and preserve the confidentiality of all the secure material, and that includes the actual online assessment itself, the testing tickets you print out, the test booklets, the holistically rated components that you're going to observe, and the calibration activities that you have to collect. All right, a TELPAS writing collection that is not assembled in accordance with the assembly that's required is going to be an irregularity. And again, we're going to spend a lot of time to be clear on that. You will sign the general oath from the state, and this is uploaded right now to our website. And again, our website, if you don't have it bookmarked, is assessment.dallasisd.org. Bookmark that because you're going to be on it a lot. And this is under the test security tab. So you'll go to the test security tab, and about midway down, we have a link to this oath. It is 2 pages, so you can decide how you want to print it. Everyone has to sign it, which includes yourself, your principal, test administrators, technology staff that has to help you with your lab, proctors, raters, and everyone else that you have to pull in during the testing window to make this work. Okay, so it is fillable, but most of y'all are going to print it. And again, it should not be signed until after you've had your training meeting. So you don't want to pass this out in everybody's box, bring this to the meeting sign. It does need to be covered that they've had the training and they understand what they are signing. Okay, so Again, they are for the rest of the spring. These are your test administrators. They are going to sign oaths for the remainder of testing. So what they've done in the fall is not going to carry over for now. And when it's time for STAR, for example, they will be signing it up. Okay, so to wrap up test security, these are just some food for thought. And I'm going to ask y'all some questions, and you have to tell me. We're just going to raise our hands and just yell it out. So we're going to see if these scenarios, I want y'all to tell me if it's an irregularity or if it's not an irregularity. So some of y'all are going to know, some of the new ones will learn. So if we get a writing sample from a core teacher, and they put this in the test coordinator's mailbox in the office, say the office or the room, is that an irregularity? Yes. Okay, because at the point that the work is completed, it is a secure testing document. Okay, second thing, the teacher records a rating of beginning on a writing sample, but they get distracted and they put advanced on the rating roster. Is that an irregularity? Yes, that's good, because that is inaccurate reporting. Third, if we have a non-LEP student that accidentally takes TELPAS, is that irregularity? Yes, because it's a big deal to get that information reported and removed. If we have a LEP student that doesn't go to the testing room where they're supposed to test and they're not administered TELPAS, is that irregularity? Yes. Okay, if we got a teacher who's very organized and they use notes they saved from last year's calibration to do well on this year's calibration, is that an irregularity? Yes, that's probably 2 irregularities because they have stuff they cheated 2 times last year. They got carried. And our final one, if we administer the listening, speaking, and reading online tests at the same day, maybe you're a school that you got one-to-one computers and you knocked this out, is that an irregularity if you can pull that off? No. It's challenging, probably tough, but it is not an irregularity. if you can look up and do that. Okay, so that's just the general mechanics of the test. Did anybody have any questions before Felicia comes up? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to do my best to cover all my slides, and I'm starting a timer on myself to stay on track. All right, I'm going to talk with you about the holistic rating part of TELPAS. When you think about TELPAS, you can think of it actually as 2 parts. There's the holistic writing component, and then you have the online assessment part. So I will go through the manual as well and try to give you page numbers for those of you that are following along and would like to bookmark those. So first, let's talk about the actual TELPAS holistic rating itself. The TELPAS holistic rater credentials. Who are raters? Raters are the people that you deem to rate your student writing samples. They must, the rater can include a substitute teacher selected to rate the EL. However, just remember that they have to have the student in the class at the time of the assessment window. They must be knowledgeable about the student's ability to use English in instructional and informal settings. They have to hold a valid educational credential such as a teacher's certificate or permit. They must also be appropriately trained in the holistic rating process and rate the student in all eligible language domains. And you can find this information on page 13 of your rater manual. When we are talking about the holistic part of TELPAS, you will always need the rater manual. I know some of you received the test administrator manual on your campus. That's for the online assessment part that we'll talk about in February. Also, remember, a student is not permitted to have one rater for some domains and another rater for other domains. As well, keep in mind that paraprofessionals cannot serve as raters. I have 2 types of raters, and this can be found on page 18 of the manual. I have my new raters and I have my returning raters. New raters are those who have never rated before. They've never participated in TELPAS. My returning raters are those who have rated in previous years. Now, if a person has rated in previous years, but if they have not rated in the last 3 years, they have not I'm sorry, they have not completed the online, hold on, let me get myself together. A person, a rater who has not completed online calibration activities, they are considered new. They have to go through what we call an online basic training. So every year raters complete calibrations, and we'll talk about that shortly. If a rater has not completed calibrations in the last 3 years, they are considered new. Does that make sense? Awesome. Test coordinators may, at their discretion, require returning raters to complete the online basic training course prior to online calibration. So let's talk about, now you have the two different kinds of raters, new and returning. These are their requirements. So when you hear me say online basic training, this is what I'm referring to that chart on page 18. New raters, those who have never rated, those who haven't calibrated in the last 3 years, they have to complete what is called online basic training, all right? Returning raters do not, unless the test coordinators, at your discretion, you say, I want everyone to complete online basic training. Now, everyone does, however, have to complete online calibrations. So you think about it like this. You've got the online basic training first, and then everyone calibrates, new and returning. And they must successfully calibrate at 70%. This is your calendar of events, your training dates. This is actually found at the very beginning of your manual. So you have to flip to the very front. Let's look at some of your key dates. The rater manual is available online because remember the state, you are not getting additional manuals other than the one that you've gotten today. If you need additional manuals for your campus, then you'll have to download them or make copies from that. Online training courses for the holistically rated assessment. So for the writing component, there are a couple of training courses that are available in the TELPAS Online Training Center. One is called Assembling and Verifying. That actually opened on Monday. That's for those people that their role is to either assemble your writing collections or verify your writing collections. Then you have the basic training course for your new K-1 and 2 through 12 raters. That opens January the 27th. The online calibration window that everyone has to participate in and successfully pass, that opens February 10th. That is also the date that my students can start writing. So that's the date that the earliest eligibility date for TELPAS writing samples. Now, per TEA, the last day for you to train your campus, be it your raters, your assemblers, your verifiers, is February the 21st. Are you going to wait that late? Why not? You don't have enough time. Can any of these things occur? No. So I can't start my writing collections. I can't do my calibrations. They can't do online basic training. None of that can occur until I have trained the staff. So of course, as always, we do have your TELPAS campus training PowerPoint and your TELPAS Alt PowerPoint for you. Those will be ready for you tomorrow. And we'll attach them to your weekly and they'll be posted and all of that good stuff for you to start looking over. We give a recommended date of February the 7th. That's the date we're saying you should train by. In order, here's the thing, people look at TELPAS as a very long window, right? When does it end? April. In April. So we're saying it's January, I've got all the way till April. But there are so many small components of TELPAS, if you wait, you will be overwhelmed. Not to mention the fact that you've got TELPAS Alt going on during this window. You will have Star Alt going on. Do I have any high schools in here? Yeah. You have SAT going on. And then we have the very next week is Star. Keep that in mind. Not to mention your real job, right? So all of this stuff is going on. And I always say TELPAS is my favorite test. TELPAS was my favorite test, and I had 550 kids. It was my favorite test because I could break it up in components and keep going. If you try to wait till the end, you will be overwhelmed. How many, this is your first year doing TELPAS? So I just told y'all, I just gave y'all that little tip. How many of you, this is your second year? Am I lying? If you wait, it's a lot, right? Do you know your love numbers? Some of you know. So just think, you have to enter all of those, you have to get writing samples, you have to enter all of those writing samples, you have to test those kids online, not once but twice. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a lot. Yes.
Can you clarify, besides it's going to be assembling the writing samples?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I give the teachers a packet, and that says, you know, that I can color coded,
Yeah.
but then they're assembling it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we are. So your question is basically who can assemble?
Well, who's the assembler? Like, so that my teachers need to take that training?
It could be your teachers, it could be your verifiers. So we're gonna talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
Great question. So again, going back to your window, it says April 3rd. Your actual last day to complete is April 1st because the 2nd and 3rd. And this is in your, I'm glad I said this. This is in your planner. We broke up TELPAS for you in this planner. So if you kind of follow those steps, and even I know parents are trying to stay ahead of those steps, you're going to be okay. We also put little bitty friendly love notes. I call them love notes for you. Little reminders, little things, just key parts of TELPAS to help you say don't stress. So kind of follow that. But it does give you that April 1st deadline because the 2nd and 3rd are the dates that we will use on the district level to do verification and make sure that your tests are okay and in order and looking good and all of your sessions are stopped and all of that good stuff. And then the date that you receive your printed reports is the 22nd and the 29th. All right, what are the TELPAS administration procedures for training? Again, as a part of the annual spring TELPAS administration, you are required to be trained on procedures such as holistic rating training requirements. That should be also reviewed with your raters, as well as information on how to access the online training and calibration components. When you look at the campus PowerPoint that is created for you to use, there are screenshots to help you walk your staff through signing up in the system, helping them to become familiar with the system. We always tell you to use our PowerPoints because they have the most relevant information. And they save you time. All you have to do is go in. I see a bunch of people that use them saying yes. All you have to go in and do is put your campus information. You don't have to go through all of this like we did when there wasn't a we. So use them. That's just one tool that you have. In addition, raters receive training on assessment procedures such as how to assemble writing collections, how to record the students' proficiency ratings, train all assemblers and verifiers, your raters, your online test administrators. The training must be provided before the raters can calibrate. Again, it has to be provided before they can calibrate. Don't wait until the 21st. The calibration window opens the 10th. That is the state date, the 21st, but again, our recommended date is the 7th. And then the staff training presentation will be posted on the assessment website by tomorrow. Okay? What is online basic training? We talked about it a little bit. You can find more information on page 20 of the manual. This course is required for your new raters and raters that have not completed calibration in the last 3 school years. It provides instruction on using the PLD rubrics. So the PLD rubric is actually the rubric that your raters need. They need it when they calibrate because they can refer to it. They need it when they do the student ratings. It's found in Appendix A, of your manual. The course for the online basic training for K1 and 2 through 12, they're separate courses. The approximate completion time is 4 to 5 hours for K1 and 2 to 3 hours for 2 through 12. Test coordinators, again, at your discretion, you can require all raters to complete this course prior to calibration activities. Raters should complete the online basic training by February 7th because the calibration window opens when? February 10th. Raters, once they complete it, they will get a certificate and they should keep a copy and give a copy to you. Yes.
can you clarify, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought they had to do online basic training every 3 years, no matter what. So let's just say that they calibrated every year, but they haven't completed all of this training since 2016. Do they need to redo it, or long as they've calibrated it?
At your discretion.
At my-
At
It's
your
not a
discretion.
requirement.
It's not, it's only required for new raters
Okay.
or those who have not calibrated in the last 3 years. Okay?
Do we have access, where do I get that info?
Which info?
That they haven't calibrated for a year?
Well, remember, since the, that's a great question. Since the system is purged every year, we've always said in our training, in our campus PowerPoints, that they should keep a copy and give a copy to you for your records, and they should keep a copy themselves. So if I'm a new teacher to your campus, and I say, but I did online basic training last year and successfully calibrated, if I don't have my certificates, you can require me to do it again.
Because I'm new to
Because
the
they-
campus, I don't know
okay.
where any of it is.
Okay, well, it should be in the test room, but we'll talk about mine.
Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody good with that? So when and where do graders take the online basic training courses? I just told you those courses are long, so again, it's depending on your campus decision. They can actually take it during school hours, after school, or on weekends. And the good thing about it, because it is so long, it does not have to be completed in one sitting. That's the online basic training. They can start it, stop it, save it, come back, and then once they complete it, it'll give them a certificate of successful completion. The online training system, because of that, can be accessed from any computer that meets the minimum requirements. And then prior to creating a TELPAS Online Training Center account, graders are required to read an online statement and affirm that they will complete the rating activities independently. It's going to say when they log in, I certify that I will complete these activities independently, blah, 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 blah. And they have to check yes, because it is an irregularity and it's a security violation for them to complete them together and share answers, etc. during calibrations and online basic training. This is the link to the TELPAS Online Training Center. It's also found at the front of your manual. It's also found in our campus PowerPoints. And they always, when they first log in, it asks for a passcode. The key code is Training 2020. When you use our PowerPoints, the slides give you that code. So you don't have to try to write it down and remember it now. See how I'm pushing using our PowerPoints? You know, saving you time. So we've talked about the online basic training. Are we good with that? We understand that?
Yes.
So let's talk about calibrations, because this is for everyone. Every grader has to calibrate every year. They have to calibrate successfully at 70%. So online calibration, and this can be found on page 20 of your manual, it has to be monitored. Any grader required to take the online basic training course must do so before attending a monitored calibration session. This is required for all graders. Graders will use the PLDs, those rubrics, in the manual to rate the students. And graders have 2 opportunities to calibrate on an assigned grade cluster. So I think Keisha talked about the grade clusters, and it's also in your manual. But based on the grade that I would rate, I'm going to calibrate and do my online basic training within that grade cluster. The approximate completion time is 1 to 2 hours. Now, calibrations have to be monitored. You can't give them the passcode and let them go work alone. You have to do your calibrations in a monitored setting. So start thinking now, who's going to be your proctor for those monitored sessions? Is it you? Is it another member of the admin team? But it should be someone of authority that can ensure that the security and test confidentiality is maintained during the calibration activity. How many of you did your calibrations after school? Most of you, okay.
I think we're doing ours on that PD day, February 14th.
Yes, so that would be a great day. I know we were looking at that yesterday, and some of the campuses decided they would do their first big calibration on that PD day. So start talking to your principal if that's the idea that you're having in your head. Now, in order to access calibrations, I've already said that you'll be given a passcode. The grader will be given a passcode by the session proctor in order to access the calibration. Notes taken during the calibration must be turned in to the proctor at the end of the calibration session. So if you give them that, the PLDs, then, and they write on them and take notes during the calibration, they have to give them back to the proctor. So you will need to give them a fresh copy when they begin to rate, okay? Raters have to complete the calibration activities individually within a monitored session, and you will also need head cards. The window opens on February the 10th. Let's talk a bit more about that passcode that they need. First of all, we're going to ask that each campus designate 3 dates for the calibration session. We're going to ask you, just like you did for ACPs, where you just went in and gave us your schedule, you're going to go to this Google form and you will enter the 3 days that you are going to calibrate. On those days, you're going to get calibration codes from us. We will mail them directly to the test coordinator. So if you call us and say, I didn't get calibration codes, check your email. That's the first thing. When you look at the calibration codes, it's going to have 2 codes. One will say set 1, one will say set 2. Set 1 is for anyone that this is their first attempt. So on your first day of calibrations, everyone will be using the set 1 passcode. Now, on your second day of calibrations, you may have 3 teachers that need to pass. They failed set 1, so they have to take set 2. Couple of things to remember, and I know it's in a slide, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. They should never take both calibrations in one day. If you give them both passcodes, they will use both passcodes. They'll take them back to back and come to you and say, I failed both times, what do I need to do now? So don't ever give out the second set unless it's to someone specific that actually has to take set 2. There's a different calibration code created by Pearson for each day of the window, so they are date specific. And all calibration activities should be complete by Friday, February the 28th. If you do have extenuating circumstances that mean you need to go beyond that date, contact us. The monitored calibration sessions, again, they are monitored. Raters begin with calibration set number 1. If they are successful, then it will give them a certificate, just like it did with the other trainings. They print the certificate, they keep a copy, they give you a copy. Now, if they are unsuccessful on the first attempt, they must go back and complete the online basic training again. Then they can come back. If they are unsuccessful, then on calibration set 1, they should go back and review the online basic training. Okay? Before they attempt set 2. They have to take set 2 on a different day. After completing a calibration set, just remember that the raters will immediately see their results and any annotations explaining the correct ratings. Also, as you plan, just keep in mind again that raters do need 1 to 2 hours to complete the calibration set. The difference in calibrations and online basic training, number 1, it's monitored, but also once they start, they have to finish. So if they start and something happens and they leave, that's one of their attempts. It won't save their progress to return for later. Now, both new and returning graders complete calibration in the monitored setting. Everyone calibrates. Monitored calibration sessions can take place during the school day, after school, or as a part of professional development. Again, most raters need 1 to 2 hours to complete. And then they just remind you, as they remind the raters, that it's a violation to share or discuss or record answers during the rating practice or calibration activities. And once they log in, it does give them that caveat that they have to check to say that. So if they, let's just say there's a campus and they decide they're going to share and everybody successfully calibrates and passes in 5 minutes, it sends a red flag to TEA in the system. That has happened. Yes.
So, sorry, Mother, I understand that if they log out and they want to log back in, their information is not going to be saved. But with our computers at our school.
We had issues last
Yes.
year.
So what if it locks them out or
You're gonna have to call us, because I know one campus in particular, they had issues, the first day of calibrations, and, it affected the whole class. And so we had to talk to Pearson, call TEA, so if that happens, call us for guidance.
Thank you.
Okay, great question. Are we good with calibrations? All right, now, so we talked about the raters. Let's talk about your assemblers and verifiers. The online course on assembling and verifying the writing, is available in the TELPAS Online Training Center as of January the 13th. So you as the test coordinator will identify who you want to serve as your assemblers and verifiers. They may be the same people. This course is required for our district. It is a 1-hour course that can be completed during school hours, after school, or on the weekend. Keep in mind when you determine your assemblers and verifiers that only certified individuals, teachers, librarians, counselors, or administrators can be verifiers and complete the course. Again, our completion date is February the 7th. Once they do the assembling and verifying course, certificates will be produced, certificates of successful completion. They keep a copy, give a copy to you. Now, as you are thinking about who's going to serve as my assemblers and verifiers, a question was asked earlier about, can your teachers, can your raters be assemblers? Yes, they can. And so if that's the case, you have them go through that assembling and that assembling course. It's because they're separated. They're not together anymore. So they are separated. So like for me, my raters were my assemblers. They were the people who assembled my writing collections. So they went through that course. My verifiers, of course, because your raters cannot be your verifiers. Y'all highlight that. That's on page 22. Raters cannot serve as verifiers. So if I'm a rater, I cannot verify. I can assemble my collections, but I cannot verify. And then prior to creating a TELPAS Online Training Center account, raters are required to read an online statement and affirm again that they will complete the activities independently. So what do the verifiers do? What are their responsibilities?
I'm sorry, one more time.
Yes.
You said there's a separate test for a verifier and an assembly.
Yeah, it's not even a test, it's just like a basic training, it's a course, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna stop my clock and now answer questions so I can go over. I'm kidding. You keep asking, I'm messing with y'all. I'm waking y'all up. Okay, so what are the verified responsibilities? They must be certified individuals. They can be teachers, librarians, counselors, or administrators. Someone asked, can my CIC be a verifier? Yes. Okay. Verifiers cannot, however, be paraprofessionals or individuals who are also raters. They need to complete the assembling and verifying grades 2 through 12 collections training course. They are the people who manage the writing collections. They check that the writing collection meets all of the requirements. If one or more samples does not, and we're going to talk about what the requirements of the samples are in just a moment, the sample will be returned to the teacher. So what you need to do for your assemblers or verifiers, they will need the writing collection cover sheet and the writing collection verification checklist, and we'll look at those in a moment. That's found in Appendix B of your manual. Your campus should have at least one verifier, but it is suggested to have more than one. So you think about it like this. I've got my raters, right? I've got my assembler. They may also be my raters. And I have my verifiers. So we're going to write and then assemble the collections. Then they go to the verifiers. Why do you complete your verification process before they actually rate them? To make sure you have what you need. You don't want to rate a sample and then go back and realize it doesn't meet the requirements. That's double work. So you always do your verification process before they actually rate the student samples. Questions about that part? Yes.
So, just so I'm clear, if I was like the verifier last year,
Okay.
do I still need to do the verifier class this year, or am I in that 3-year consecutive?
Well, we're requiring that they go through it each year
Okay.
as a refresher. Great question.
So then, I'm thinking then the reading teachers can be the raters and assessors, and then maybe the math teachers can be the verifiers.
That's totally up to you. And we're actually at the end, we're gonna give you guys some time to kind of start thinking through that and walk through some questions with you. But yes, and even when you look at the campus training PowerPoint, I actually put my campus plan in there. Because I had so many left, so I had everybody rated. All of my core teachers were raters, and all of my elective teachers were verifiers. And it was assigned, so they only ended up having to rate like 10 samples each, which they loved. But I've done it both ways. And so either way, it's just up to you. But it gives you an idea. But we are going to give you some time to start thinking about that, talking with your table mates, how did they set it up, especially because I had a lot of hands that were new, and then give you some time to talk with us about it. Yeah, but that would be possible. All right, so let's talk about what is required in the writing samples. We've talked about the training component. Let's talk about what the actual writing collections look like. It has to be 5 total samples that are required in each selection. 1 must be the use of past tense, and at least 2 have to come from academic subjects, math, science, or social studies. You can find this information for the requirements on page 22 of your manual. Writing can only be assigned on or after February 10th that may be considered for the writing collection. Anything before February 10th cannot be a part of the TELPAS writing collection. And then each campus is to assign dates when writing samples should be done. All writing collections should be completed by March 2nd. Remember, we're kind of giving you way ahead of time because you don't want to wait until the end. If you are like me, we did our writing collections in 1 week. 1 sample per day. Either as a bell ringer, but we did it in each content. That way we got all 5. We made sure to get the academic samples. And then everyone, because I had such a large population, every kiddo wrote, because I needed to make sure that for some reason I didn't miss any kids. If you have a large EL population, you may have some students that are on your discrepancy roster. You may have some students that are miscoded. So you need to think about how you're going to capture those students. Now, on page 23 to 25, it gives you some possible topics for those writing samples. I'm not going to go through them with you, but just know they give you some possible topics that you could write about. They do include those that could be past tense and some academic samples. So the question came about in previous training, can I assign the writing topic? Yes, you can, because that's why they give you some suggestions. I ended up, my department chairs came up with a topic based on their blueprint to make sure the writing samples were relevant to what the students were learning in class during that time. So start thinking about your topics and how you want to assign them. Someone else asked yesterday, can we color code to make sure that that each sample is included, the necessary sample? Sure. So again, you just see the examples. Now, on page 25, they give you some tips for good writing collections. I won't read through those. Just make sure that, remember 2 important parts. In each collection, include writing tasks that allow students to show what they can do, but also include writing tasks that stretch and push student limits so you can see the full extent of their language abilities and any elements of the second language acquisition. Just remember, this isn't an academic test, it's a language acquisition measurement. And remind, and I know someone said, how do I get my principal to understand when he's writing, he takes this out of the way, blah, blah, blah. It's a part of accountability for participation. That's all you got to say. When you say accountability, you'll get the ear. So it is part of accountability for participation. And You don't want to wait, show them your calendar, show them all of the things that are coming up. Because I often hear, especially in elementary, well, they want to wait till the end because of 5th grade or 4th grade. Let's do it now and get it out of the way so they can go back to that part. Okay? Not only do they tell you tips for good writing collections, but they tell you what not to include in the collection, and this is found on page 26. The ones that I want to point out to you is to remember it cannot include papers containing language directly copied from a textbook, lesson, or other written source. That does not measure the student's language acquisition if they are just copying directly from another source. Also, it can't contain papers that show any corrections, be it teacher, peer, parent, or graded information, and it shouldn't be worksheets. So it cannot just make sure you go through this, and this slide is also in your campus PowerPoint to help your teachers understand what can and cannot be included in the writing samples. How many do I need? One has to be
Past tense.
2 have to be academic, math, science, social studies, and content. Exactly. Now, we talked about, so we've got our 5 samples. Now, remember we talked about the role of the assembler or verifier. This is the information we were saying that they need. This is your cover sheet. At the bottom of the cover sheet, you're going to see, and this is in Appendix B, if you want to look at the bigger version. There's a part where it says writing, rating. Once your raters do the rating part, that's where they put the rating for that student. This is the verification checklist that will be used to check off to make sure everything is included in the writing sample that should be. What is new on your cover, on the cover sheet for the collections is that there are possible 3 potential people that can sign. The teacher, if not the TELPAS grader. The reason why they included that is that they said you could have a district grader. But again, in most cases, it's going to just be the TELPAS grader, which is the teacher who has the student in class. And then the additional grader. So we talked about, I don't know if I said it, but if I do not successfully calibrate, I don't think I talked to you, I said it so many times. If you do not successfully calibrate, do you still have to rate?
Yes.
Yes. It does not exempt you from rating. What happens is what? I've got to get an additional rater. I just inconvenienced someone else. So that means I have to get an additional rater from the same cluster that will serve as the second rater. Now, if there's a discrepancy in the ratings, which rating do you go with? The one who passed. The one who passed.
And that's all in this year too?
That is it's somewhere in this, and it should be. I know it's in the slide. I feel like I skipped that slide because I don't remember saying it.
Okay, it was there.
It was there. Okay. Okay. Tell me, this is the 5th time, y'all. All right. These are your required forms. So remember I showed you, this is the cover sheet, and we said this is where the rater records their rating, right? So I take all of my students, we've got their samples, we've got the cover sheet, we've got the verification sheet, it's past verification. So now I'm going to need a rating roster. My rating roster, it looks like this, and so I would write all of my students down, and then I'm going to record the rating. These are your ratings. Beginning, intermediate, advanced. Advanced high is H. If you are old like me, it used to be AH. It is not anymore. It is H. Stress that with your teachers. Now, X is an R decision. That would be like, if I have a kiddo, their disability is hearing. So I may request TEA approval for the paper version of the online listening speaker. And so it could be, I may have a domain X. All right, we good with that? Extenuating, did I say that? No, she's not paying attention to me. Extenuating circumstance, that's an E. That would be like for a homebound kiddo, but you contact us if you have questions about, or if you think that a student may need an E for extenuating circumstance. Then who signs? The rater signs. They sign the first part. The additional rater, if they have someone who had to come behind them to rate because they didn't pass calibrations, or just because they collaborated. Sometimes I would collaborate with my LPAC chair. I was like, Mark, I can't really figure out this rating. I'm stuck between these two ratings with the kids, so we may collaborate on that. And so he signed if we collaborated, or if I had the second rater, and then the campus principal. Okay? Now, random odds, oh, let me go back to this. K1, your kinder and first, they do not write. It is only observational for them. That is why, don't let them wait till the end to give you these. They should be able to do the observational ratings early, and they actually have an earlier deadline, due date in the planner, because it's strictly observation. So they're not doing any writing corrections, those K1 kiddos. Now, when you look at, you have a copy of this in your manual. We have 2 copies on our website. One will say K1, and it's gonna look just like this because they're rating everything. But then we have one that says 2 through 12. That is going to be listening, speaking, and reading are grayed out. Why? They're all online. So, I mean, you can use either one, but I found that if you give the 2 through 12 this one, they rate. So just keep that in mind. And now, if I did have a kiddo in 2 through 12 that had gotten approved for a paper version of a part of the assessment, I would want to use this part because they're actually doing an observational rating. Random audits will be made in the spring to ensure ratings are accurate and have been appropriately documented. The CTC will use the rating roster to enter the holistic ratings into Pearson Access Next. And Keisha's going to talk to you a little bit more about the validity study or the audits. The CTC must confirm that the ratings match the writing cover sheet and other PLDs. All ELs are listed on the rating roster, including students receiving special education services who have an ART exception from one or more domains, students whose parents have waived services, so parent denials must take TELPAS, and your ELs who are homebound students. Again, that would be an example of where we may tell you to use E for extenuating circumstances. Any questions? That was a lot. Y'all look good. Okay. So discuss with your table mate your best tricks or tools for ensuring that your writing collections are complete and rated accurately. Let's take about 45 seconds.
I've done it both ways, but
Okay, let me hear from someone. Share with us, some of you that are well versed with TELPAS, what are your tricks and tools for ensuring that your writing collections are complete and rated accurately? What are your tips? What do you want to share with us? What do you do?
The color coding has been a great idea.
The color coding, okay, I'm seeing some yes. Any other tips?
oh, I make them use the star line paper
The
so that
what?
they get that practice. The star line writing
The
paper.
start, I did that too. The 26 line paper, okay, the star line paper to help them get that practice. I think your EL teachers probably like that. Any other tips?
Having a schedule of when things need to be happening and where they need to be turned in, so that you're always kind of like reassuring and ensuring and reassuring that they are due that date.
Yeah.
And so that you're having them be completed by the date.
So being clear and having good communication with your test dates and what's due. I always gave them a condensed version of the plan with the due date so they would know the writing topics, the reading schedule. I always tried to make that very clear with them. Nothing was a secret to me. Any other things?
We just all do, like, we're all doing back on Monday, the whole school. We're all doing the same topic every single day.
Okay,
Friday,
so
Saturday, schedule, Thursday.
one content per day, all right? Someone said doing, and yesterday they said doing the bell ringers. The other person did say having every kiddo right, just to make, in case someone was, not on the left list, on the EL placement roster the day I read the list. Any other? Remember that your opt-ins, 33, 44, 55, they don't test every year. Someone says, if you add this kiddo to the roster, we look up the code in. They're not, they're an opt-in. So they don't test, but your parents are now do. All right, great job. Thank you all for your time. Keisha's gonna talk to you a little bit about the CTC responsibilities. We'll take a short break and we'll close out with TELPAS and give you some time to work on your plan so that we're here and you have some of the veterans here because we know you really don't have time on your campus.
Okay, so we're gonna try to group this and bridge it in. You had a mouthful and an earful. And the thing about TELPAS is that this is a test of many moving parts. So it's not gonna be, you're gonna have a lot of work to do after this meeting and we'll support you through it. Okay, so with all that you have today, what you need to understand is priority is you've got to establish a campus testing plan for TELPAS, a dedicated plan just for TELPAS. And you're going to, within this plan, have to come up with when you're going to administer the online test and separately enter the holistic ratings. Okay, so there's two huge responsibilities you've got to put some thought in beforehand. Third thing, we need to manage, we need you to be cognizant to manage the actual assessments of the students who move. So some of us have transient districts where the families move back and forth across town or just whatever to our neighboring schools. So with that, if you have a student who enrolls in Dallas ISD, again, before February 24th, we're responsible for all components of TELPAS. Okay, so that's our kid. We're going to do every single thing online and holistic. Now, if we have an English language student that enrolls to Dallas ISD on or after February 24th, you again are only responsible for the online tests in grades 2 through 12. Okay, that's three components. If the test was not already administered. So we will be on standby with TTCs to help you if we need to look up where they came from, what they have, what they didn't do, because sometimes students are enrolled and they don't have all of their transcript information, so to speak. And just remember, if we have an in-district transfer where you have someone who's going from Dealey to Brashear, okay, we're going to finish that out. That's our kid, and we will keep that going. So nobody's off the hook for in-district. Now, it's critical for you as testing coordinators to make sure you've got a good working knowledge of the holistic rating training. So that's going to be a lot, and we ran through it very quickly. Okay, so you're going to be the lead. This is a trainer, and you need to have it set in your head first before you begin to work with your staff. So you'll train them, but again, we always have one or two special people we have to kind of encourage along a little bit more. By the time it's time to do it, some folks are going to forget everything that you talked about when you did your training. Okay, so we want to make absolutely certain that everyone in whatever role that you assign them, that they understand the importance of what they're going to do and how the holistic rating process is going to work. So basically, we don't want anybody to sleep at the wheel. And when we're in a crunch trying to get this done, especially with the larger populations going to the end of the window, we don't want a lot of avoidable errors. If we have new returning raters, make sure they are clear on what they're supposed to take and what grade clusters they're going to assign to. So if you have some, well, I did 2 through 3 or whatever last year, they just need to get in where you need them to fit in. And be team player. And we need to make sure that all of our raters are completing their training requirements. So we're not going to go on an honor system because people will not, okay, yeah, I did, yeah, I'm working on it. But we don't want these folks to go to the wire and not complete it, and then we've got some more problems because we're out of time. okay? Now, we do have a section we're going to discuss on TELPAS Alt. That will be a separate training, okay? And those administrators covering TELPAS Alt need to be worked with by February 21st, okay? And again, in your pretty little colored planner we gave you last time, definitely circle these dates and keep that handy. Okay, we already asked you for 3 different dates. This is a Google Doc link, and as Felicia said, if different things go on in the system, if we're kind of aware that we've got some heavy calibration days, we'll be on standby if we've got to make calls about the system, district network, or system network. You'll still be verifying your student data as the window goes along. So you want to make sure all of your EL students are enrolled in the TELPAS administration, okay? If you've got some changes with demographic information, that needs to be reflected on the students' testing, the students' records at the time of testing, okay? And again, we've had a reminder about years in U.S. schools. That is going to come from your LPAC share. So if you don't do much with your LPAC share, you guys are going to be good friends in the spring. But they've received a lot of training last fall from the bilingual ESL department, so they are resources, and you should not be behind the 8 ball and trying to do too much and research too much, because they're going to have 90% of what you need. Okay, if you on a district level, doing this again, we're going to do a massive upload of all of our ELs into Pearson on February 4th. Okay, so this district is huge, and nothing for us is really small. Okay, we also are going to create test sessions for you. So that kind of worked out and saved you a lot of time last year. We will do that again. We still are going to ask you to help us as time goes by. So if you've got ELs who continue to register or withdraw on or after February 10th, we'll need updates of who those kids are. So we are keeping this as a living roster, so to speak, so that we can keep this as clean as possible. We're going to keep registering and removing students on a weekly basis. So we do have a programming assessment staff that works behind the background for us, and they're constantly going to be working on this, and we'll still need your help. So we're going to remove the kids that withdraw, and we need you on this split bullet. You need to definitely remove those kids from sessions. So you'll from sessions online in the Pearson system. So when you get word of any changes in your roster, that'll be one key thing that'll be happy so they can move on. We'll confirm if the kid is coded as LEP before registering new kids in the Pearson system. And for those new students, we're only going to enroll them in the domains that we're responsible to test based on when we inherit. Okay? And again, if the kids withdraw, we're only going to remove the domains that we're not responsible to rate. So for example, if we had them enough time to do their writing, we're still going to be compliant to do the ratings on that and corrections. Now, one thing that you'll do several times is you're going to run a list of your current EL students. And I'm not going to stop and do this in Power School because it's kind of slow, but you can just write this on the back of your agenda or wherever you're taking notes. The way you can find your EL roster very quickly is in Power School. So step 1, log into Power School. Step 2, on the left, your menu is System Reports. And when you click on that, it will fold out all the different reports. And very close to the middle bottom, you'll probably have to scroll about 2 windows. You will have an EL category, and I believe it's got 2 things in there. And you want the DISD EL placement roster. When you click on the DISD EL placement roster, you will get 3 options for how you want to run it. And most people choose to do it by alpha. That'll just get every student by name, or you can do it by grade level. But you'll have to add those numbers to get a completed count for your school. So whatever works for you. Again, with your LPAC chairs, they are working centrally with the bilingual ESL department, so they will be the first contacts about different issues regarding the LEP students that we're processing in from the intake centers, and that includes anybody who is site, unschooled, asylees, or refugee information. You also need, they're gonna be on these teams with the art exemptions, your LPAC chairs, so they are key as far as knowing what domains the student is going to be exempt from, and if there's accommodations that's required for the reading part of TELPAS, that needs to be documented. You do, again, need to identify a verifier who's going to do the writing collections. So we don't want anyone, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. So whoever has these key roles, they want to be prepared, ready to go. We do have instructions for a validity audit on the next two slides I'll talk about. And we have kids who need a special administration of TELPAS. We want that by February 21st. So just keep in mind, Texas is a very big state, and we've got a lot of counties, a lot of districts, and everybody is going to be putting in their requests and different things for TEA, so we do not want to try to go to the last day. We can't guarantee a 1 hour or 1 day turnaround. Okay. All right, so with the training center, this is a reminder, your new and returning raters are going to have to start over and create new accounts. They just have no capacity to save that much information, so whatever we had on file for 2018 is gone. Hopefully they save their certificates, if they can prove it, from their flash drives or whatever, and print it out for you. They're good, they may not have to rate it, they can't, they'll have to do training again. But they do commit that they will be able to store certificates in the future, so we'll see. But you still need to keep copies of the completed calibration certificates just to cover yourself in case of an audit, and you'll file that with your testing information. All right, if you've got students who have the unfortunate circumstance of going to alternative school, we're still going to deal with them again. It's kind of like an in-district transfer. So if, I'll just read this, if an EL student from your school withdraws to a DAEP and has completed their writing examples before getting in trouble, you are still responsible to collect and rate those, okay? If an EL who is assigned a DAEP before completing any of the writing online tests, then the DAEP test coordinator will facilitate that. Her name is Stephanie Big, and she is not able to come to all the meetings, but she sends out a lot of communications to keep you on track on who we have, and she may need some help from you if she's got questions. Okay, so Stephanie is going to have access to all the TEAs for the Dallas TEA, so she may create some sessions for students, okay, of yours that might be there for different times during when they test. So if you see some sessions, her naming convention will have DAEP in it, don't delete those sessions. That'll mess up a lot, and we don't want to have to get a lot of stuff deleted and put back in. Okay. So again, she does a good job, and we'll be also sending you some reminders as well. So with the validity and reliability part of TELPAS, all districts have certain responsibilities and expectations, and that's to make sure that we are guaranteeing validity and reliability of what we're doing. So an extra step in Dallas that we're going to do, we know you have friends who work in neighboring districts, and they're going to be doing all different kind of stuff that may or may not be compliant with what we're supposed to do, but we're going to take an extra step and ask that 5% all of your writing collections in grades 2 through 12 be rated by a second rater. So let's say you have 100 kids, 5% of that, okay, whatever that is, 5% of that, you're going to pull that number randomly, and we are going to have a second rater to rate that one. If somebody does not successfully complete their calibration, but they get the minimum 7% on the first attempt, we want them to go back through the basic training again before attempting step 2. And usually it's the case that if they are kind of focused and not distracted and paying attention, they can usually pass in one round. But if they're kind of off, then chances are great that they're not going to do well again. And one other thing to add, I don't know if that has happened in a long time, but we have, as a district, been audited before by TEA, and we've had some schools who were not able, when they got audited, to provide their writing samples, and that was not a good thing. Okay? So at the bottom here, while calibration and second raters are important, remember ultimately that the original rater that you designated is ultimately responsible for the class. So even if they fail, they still have a huge responsibility that we need to do our part for rating our kids. And they're still gonna have to do their best even though somebody's coming behind. Okay, so we've got tutorials and we want you to equip the actual students before it's time so that they're comfortable and we're setting them up for success. So, we'd like for the tutorials, this is already loaded on your computer through the Test Now app, and if you don't see that, it's in the DISD Software Center. Well, we want this to be done by February 21st, okay? And the purpose is to help the kids to become comfortable and familiar with how the online system is going to work. So it'll introduce them to the screen behaviors, how stuff is going to pop up, how to go and advance to the next screen or go backwards or whatever the case. And if they do have some extra little bells and whistles built into the test, then they'll understand where those are and not waste time and increase their testing window longer than what they need, okay? And again, we also don't recommend you do this. It's a bad practice. Okay, well, we're going to do this an hour before the test and then test. So that increases brain drain and stress, and we don't recommend that.
Okay, so to be clear, this is required now in the past on I've required it for like all my 2 second graders because they're used only, but it was optional for everybody else. So what you're saying is we can require it now.
We're going to say yes. You've got different situations with different kids, so you'll be able to gauge that, but you'll have some probably dead spots and stuff, whatever, where you can catch it that. But again, we want the kids to be set up for success and not have any questions or delay their testing time because they don't know how to move around. Okay, and one of the bigger thing is please start a headset check. Count your headsets, see how many you have. Okay, some of us have one-to-one with your kids, and you need one-to-one with your headsets. And there's also within the test map a menu option that's called practice test. Click on that. And again, this is a labor's thing, but we want to test the headsets. So you need to make sure that you can hear the audio samples from the system and that the system can pick up the audio from the headset mic. Okay? And the reason is we don't want staticky headsets when it's time to test and the kids can't hear themselves and they're messing up on their 2 attempts to do the recording. And then if it's got a bad mic, we don't want to send recordings that are saved by the system, and those can't be decided to record by as well. Okay, so any questions on that? Yes.
So I heard someone say that, okay, so some of our elementary schools don't have computer labs. So somebody said there's a requirement for how far apart the students sit.
It's a suggestion, it's not required.
Okay,
They give you a guideline, so it's in your manual to try.
It's in the manual.
Yes, it's a suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna give you a short break. It's 10 o'clock. So, I'll see you back. I know it's short, it's like 10:05. 10:05. Oh, the break went over. It's 10:07. I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started again because I know you are just dying to get back to campus. Yay. Y'all like it, right? All right. TELPAS alternate. Just like we tell you to train each and every person on your campus, this time you never know what's going to happen. We're going to train. We're training each and every one of our test coordinators. Because there may be a few test coordinators who say, well, I can't, especially in some of our magnet schools and things like that. They may not have any TELPAS alternate kids in them because they need to be trained. But no, to the contrary, they really do need to be trained so that they can understand TELPAS alternate because you never know where your road may lead you or who may come down your road, right? So therefore, you need to be prepared. So TELPAS alternate. If you would, just have handy, because we'll talk about it, your packet that says TELPAS alternate participation requirements. And then the TELPAS alternate reference guide. Have those handy, because we'll kind of looking room as we're going through the presentation. TELPAS alternate was developed as a result of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which requires each state to administer an alternate English language proficiency assessment for ELs with the most significant cognitive disabilities, okay? TEA worked with stakeholders to develop the TELPAS alternate for grades 2 through 12 to evaluate students receiving special education services in PEAMS and LEP as LEP, and have also been identified with a significant cognitive disability. The students must meet eligibility criteria to participate in TELPAS alternate. In your packet on page, that starts with page 10, that's your manual. Your manual starts on page 10 in your packet, the packet I just told you about, with your TELPAS alternate manual. All test administrators should read and become familiar with the TELPAS alternate test administrator manual, as well as you should become familiar because you are, they're going to come to you for questions, so you want to have some idea of what everything is going to look like to be able to provide support to your campus teachers. You will also train your TELPAS alternate teachers on security test questions and assessment management system. So just as you will have to train everybody over TELPAS in general, you will hold a separate training for your TELPAS alternate teachers over the administration procedures for TELPAS alternate. Felicia mentioned earlier, we created a training PowerPoint for that as well. So you have that training PowerPoint to train your teachers on that. So you may have a teacher that may have students that are just taking TELPAS, and then you may, that same teacher may have some students that are taking TELPAS alternate. So they will be trained in both. Who will participate in TELPAS alternate? Notice earlier we said TELPAS alternate is for students in grades what? 2 through 12. So your kinders and your first graders will not participate in TELPAS alternate. They will participate in just the TELPAS, okay? So TELPAS alternate is only for students in grades 2 through 12. And basically this, based on feedback from the stakeholders, the state decided that students in K-1 are not yet identified as having significant cognitive disability. They are still growing and just to see what's happening. For our second graders, students who are classified as an ELS in PEAMS, the R committee in conjunction with the LPAC must review the participation requirements for TELPAS alternate to make the assessment determination. The first few pages of your packet gives you the participation requirements for TELPAS alternate. So if they're sitting in the R committee meetings, the LPAC representative is there, then they are going through these questions to determine whether or not a second grader is eligible to participate in TELPAS alternate. For students in grades 3 through 12, the student must be identified as an EL, the student is receiving special education services, and the student meets participation requirements of STAR Alternate 2. STAR Alternate 2 starts in grade 3, okay? So that's a little different because second grade has no state STAR test, all right? I showed you here, this is your TELPAS alternate participation requirements. What are the questions? The questions are simple. Is the student identified in PEAMS as LEP? Does the student have significant cognitive disability? Does the student require specialized extensive support to assess the grade level curriculum and environment? Does the student require intensive individualized instructions in all instructional settings? Does the student access and participate in the grade level teach through prerequisite skills? And is the assessment determination based on the student's significant cognitive disability and English learner status and not an extenuating factor? So they will go through it and address all of those things. If the student meets it, then the student will participate in the TELPAS alternate. There are some special coding situations that you may come up with, and it's the NAR, which is the No Authentic Academic Response, and the medical exception. They will be addressed differently for TELPAS alternate. For grade 2 student, if the R committee determines that the student meets the eligibility criteria for TELPAS alternate and it qualifies for NAR, the student will not be required to participate in TELPAS alternate. For your grades 3 above, if they meet the eligibility criteria for Star Alt 2 and they qualify for a NAR or ME, the student will not be required to participate in TELPAS alternate. However, you as the campus test coordinator must go in and code it correctly. You can't just say, well, this student is a NAR and they don't meet, so I don't have to test them. You don't have to test them, but you have to identify them in the system so that the state will know that this student is a TELPAS alternate student, but they were not tested because they fall into one of those two categories, all right? In your packets on pages 6 and in your packet on page 6 and 8, there you see the forms for a NAR in both Spanish and English, and the form for a medical exception in both Spanish and English. The forms are also located on TEA's website, and I'll have that for you at the end of this presentation. So let's talk about some more detail. What is the TELPAS alternate? It is basically a holistic inventory that assesses the language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So just like the regular TELPAS, for students with the significant cognitive disabilities in grades 2 through 12. It's aligned to the ELPS, and it's based on alternate proficiency level descriptors. Here's an example of it. The test questions in TELPAS alternate are called observable behaviors. They are descriptions of student behaviors in the language domains of listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Test administrators consider how well students understand and use English in a variety of social and academic situations. Excuse me. Let's look at it. So this is a sample. The student may or may not attend to group discussions. B, the student imitates or attempts to imitate words heard in group discussions. C, the student shares information in group discussions using a few high-frequency, high-need vocabulary words. D, the student shares information in group settings using a small number of combined words. And E, the student shares detailed information in group settings. As you notice, that is getting progressively fluent, right? So the student started out at an awareness level in that sample, went on to imitation, then the early independence, developing independence, and basic fluency. Notice that the TELPAS alternate has 5 levels, whereas TELPAS only has 4 levels, and the levels kind of overlap. By stretching out the beginning and intermediate levels of TELPAS alternate provides more granular information about the English language proficiency for students with significant cognitive details. This can help educators more specifically assess growth and target instruction from year to year. Who can be your test administrators? The test administrators may include special education teachers, bilingual or ESL teachers, or other service providers who work regularly with the students. They must have a high level of interaction and familiarity with the student, hold valid education credentials, and must sign the security oath following training before handling secure materials. Now, you all know the districts must assign the same test administrator to evaluate students in all 4 domains. I can't evaluate the student in listening and speaking, and Felicia turns around and evaluates them in reading and writing. It has to be the same person for all 4 domains. Now you may have, you know your students, right? So you may walk in the building like, how are the kids doing every day? You may know my name, but do you know me well enough to assess me? No, so you can't be my TELPAS alternate test administrator. It must be someone who has a high level of familiarity with the student. So that also includes our, so your TAs, your paraprofessionals that work with those students, they can also be test administrators for the students after they've been trained and they've signed the oath, as well as they must be supervised either directly or indirectly by a certified professional on the same campus, okay? TELPAS alternate test security, we must follow all the test security that we followed in the beginning, that we shared in the beginning, as well as those more details of test security information in the district campus coordinator resource manual. And so in addition to that, note that the TELPAS alternate is not secure until a student's name or observational information has been added. Look at the back of your starting page, I think it's 50, 49, 48, 49. Should look like this. This is where you see the observable behaviors. You see how it's in the manual, right? It's not secure until a student's information has been placed on the information, it's called a little folder, that's what they call it. And so once you place my name on it or you put some identifiable information about it, then it becomes secure. Otherwise, because let's just say you didn't get enough of the observable behaviors form, you can still download them and duplicate them, okay? Everybody understand that? But it's not secure until it actually we have students' information. You must check out the materials to the teachers every day, and they are to return them to you daily. It must be kept in locked storage in the testing center, not in their room. Are we clear on that? Are we real clear on that? Because they may say, oh, I forgot, but I locked it up. No, it's kept with you just like they do all other materials and check them in and out. So, there are 3 steps to administering the TELPAS alternate. I'm sorry, 5 steps to administering the TELPAS alternate. The first steps are, they're going to start with 1 student and 1 domain. So again, what's the 4 domains? Okay, so they get to choose that based on the back. You know, they can say, I'm going to start with speaking because that's what's fresh in my mind. They will review each of the 10 observable behaviors, S1 through S10. And then they will decide what order they're going to go in. I might want to go to S1, then I'm going to skip down to S3, then I'm going to skip down to S5 because I like patterns. And so I'm going to find a pattern. And then I'm going to go S2, 3, or S4, and so on. But they have to do 1 domain at a time per student, okay? So they can do domain S1, speaking. Then once they finish speaking, they will go into what? Listening. Or they may go into reading, or they go to the writing. They have to complete all 40. But as they're doing it, they have to consider 1 observable behavior at a time. They're going to think about the description that most closely matches the student's performance most consistently. Think about how well the student has demonstrated the ability to understand or use English in the context of skills that the student is learning. And think about how well the student was able to understand or use English when practicing those skills in the classroom setting. And once they've completed all 4 of them, all 4 domains, they're going to make sure they've done this. They can only mark 1 bubble at a time. So if they get off, they need to make sure they go back and do mark 1 bubble and make sure they do a clean erase, okay? So, after all of them have been done, then they're going to either turn them into you or you're going to assign them. How many of you enter the information yourself? Okay. And how many of you assign, you give a role to one of your people on campus, okay? It's totally left up to you. I just know me. I like to do it myself, so I want to make sure that you've done it, and I like you to do it at a certain time. So I want you to turn it into me by this date, so I have enough time to enter these things into the system. So, but again, if you determine that you have a strong person assistant who can enter them for you, that's okay. You just have to give them rights in the assessment management system. You will assign them an account, okay? So what they will do is take all 40, the whole little packet, those observable behaviors, 1 through 40, and then they'll just enter A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. Then after they've entered them all, then they will, or you will, depending on who's doing the whole, I'm gonna say you will save to make sure that your answers are there. And then you're going to verify. Why do we need to verify? Make sure we're correct, because what could happen? We could get off very, very easily. You say, oh, well, I put in all these answers and I messed up. I got off on one. I put CC twice because I wasn't paying attention. My phone rang while I was entering this information. Because what happens is once you submit, no other changes can be made. And then you have to call us, and then you have to call the Pearson and go through all this little process, okay? Now, this is not like when y'all were doing the grade 1 to 2 entry, right, this time. You know, it was a real, well, y'all might not say it was an easy fix, but it's an easier fix than it is going through Pearson, okay? So let's make sure that we take our time and we will enter the information carefully. We will save and verify. But we do know that you're human and mistakes happen. Let's just keep them to a minimum. Right. Do not score. Now we talked about the students that have shown up and we were able to assess them. There may be some cases in extenuating circumstances, like a student that receives a medical exception or the no authentic response to NAR student. So we have to tell the system we're capturing these students, but they were not assessed for those reasons. An extenuating circumstance, an example would be this. A student was hospitalized or became sick and didn't return until after the testing window closed. The test administrator was able to successfully rate the student in one or a couple of domains, but not in all the domains. The test cannot be submitted. All 40 have to be completed. Unless all observable behaviors have been marked. So the score code for this would be E. Now this is the caveat. You have to contact us because this should be rare. It should be like all your kids. You have 10 kids and all your kids are getting an E.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going to happen is TA, once we consult with them, we're going to say, okay, we have this campus over here that has a student over here that's going to have an E because of X, Y, Z. And we'll consult and they'll say, okay, if they're expecting only, hey, a small amount of students to get an E, but then they get all of our score results because you all didn't communicate with us that there was a large number, then that's going to set up a big, huge red flag. And you know, it gets a snowball going. We don't want that to happen. So please contact us for guidance, all right? Medical exception, you can find the form is in your packet, but it's also located at this link. And so the student is in the final stages of a chronic terminal degenerative illness and so on and so on. So they can't be assessed. And we know we have some students like that. And then the no authentic academic response. They meet those criteria. The student is unable to demonstrate any observable reaction to a specific stimulus. And we do have students like that. The form can be found there. So districts are required to assess all eligible students who are in attendance during the testing window. Students who are eligible for TELPAS out, they must have their test submitted or the appropriate score code that we just talked about, the E, the N, or the M, right? They must be entered. So you should have, that should be really clean. Remember this going on at the same time as what? The regular TELPAS. So y'all got to stay on point. Sharing with your team a glossary explaining how some terms of use and observable behaviors provided in Appendix B of the manual. For the listening domain, information should be presented to students orally, because they're listening, so it should be presented orally, except for students who receive the input through sign language. And for the writing domain, students using augmentative and alternative communication as expressive communication must use symbols that are combined with printed letters or words beginning with the early independence level. This is a resource that not only you need to review, but share it with your TELPAS alternate test administrators so that they can become familiar. TA has a good PowerPoints up there and some other things by domain and PODs so that they can become familiar with it. Now, questions about TELPAS alternate? Yes?
So usually it's going to be our FLS teacher that's going to do this. But students in first grade are going to have to take the listening TELPAS.
grades, kinder and first grade, they take the regular TELPAS. This is only for students beginning in grade 2. So
And our teachers are gonna have to do this training and also the regular training, correct?
if you have a teacher that
She
happens
does,
to
yeah.
be and has both, so then the answer will be yes.
Okay.
So our question was, if her teacher has students that are going to be participating in the regular TELPAS, and they have students that are participating in TELPAS alternate, do they have to participate in both trainings? The answer is yes. And just like we said earlier, like I told you, there are people in here who say, I know I don't have any TELPAS alternate. Like Rangel said, they know they don't have any TELPAS alternate, but guess what? She has to sit right here and learn too. So they have to just sit right there, train your whole staff, and then you have a smaller training for them. Yes, sir.
Usually, TELPAS audits are TC.
I'm gonna tell you just like I tell another person that asked me that question. Placement does not determine assessment. So you have, I mean, I know y'all try to make it, because that's not always true, so I don't want to say yes, that's the same way, because it may or it may not be true for a student. It's for the student that has the most significant cognitive disabilities, and they qualify for STAR option participation, if Felicia's gonna ask for it. That's the best way I can answer it, because I can't, what I don't,
My question was if they can't verbalize what they're saying, is
it's not necessarily, you gotta go through they have to go through and see if they meet the requirements for NAR or a medical exception. So, but again, I just try to clarify that because I know sometimes we want to say, okay, to make it easy for our brain and to track it, these kids over here will participate in a certain assessment. But I want y'all to start thinking and helping your other people around your campus to start thinking. Placement does not determine assessment. So significant cognitive disabilities, and they qualify for STAR out too. That's the way I have to share with you. So that it makes a little more sense. Please just make sense.
I'm the only kid that qualifies on my campus.
So what happens is they will qualify for STAR all two, right? But based on the NAR guidelines, they may be identified as a NAR, so that would be additional paperwork in that student's IEP. And then also, one thing that we talked about when we were collaborating with MLEP, most of those students that are going to take TELPAS off, when you look at your codes, that's why this is important, they're identified as YU. Wait, am I confusing? YUR. I know.
I think it's YU.
YU.
Because they're left and they're unserved.
Yes, because UO is untestable, which means that
They're not
actually
actually
be
left.
potential left. That's right. So it's YU.
Okay, now we're to my favorite part before we get to the end. Y'all, we're almost at the end, I promise you this. All the sessions that we've had, they love this part, so I'm sure you're going to love this part too. You see your plan, get your sample plan out for me, please. This is time, because you don't have time on campus, y'all so busy, right? Y'all got like a lot of stuff to do. So we're going to give you a time now. Now that it's fresh on your mind, I need you to go through here, and some of you brought your LPAC people with you, so you can go through here. And I want you to start generating a plan of action. You don't want to plan to fail because you failed the plan, right? So you want to make sure that you come up with a plan. What's going to be your TELPAS plan? It's really short. It says 4 pages, but the cover page is easy. So you really got 3 pages. Part 1, what's your writing collection process? And then part 2 is grades 2 through 12 TELPAS online process. So you can talk to your neighbors, someone around you at another table, you can kind of get some ideas to go ahead and generate your plan, start your draft. Because according to your planner, on Friday, you should be sharing your TELPAS plan with your principal. Because what you don't want to do is get so caught up, leave here, put this in your back seat, and then you come back in a few weeks like, oh, I gotta get TELPAS out the way. No, and then all these other things are happening. We need you to take it in bite size, okay? And make sure that it's working for you. Felicia and myself, we're gonna be walking around, and then if y'all need assistance, we'll be more than happy to assist you. I'm gonna give you about 10 minutes or so to start your plan. You can stay here as long as you want to once we dismiss. It's totally up to you, because sometimes people do need time to think. So if you any questions before we get started? All right, let's get started. So we're gonna come back together, and then I will allow you to continue to work as you need, but I just want to come back together. So hopefully this time that we've given you is very, very beneficial to be able to get something down on paper and not just say, oh, I'll do it when I get back to campus. Please, 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 ladies and gentlemen, whatever you do, once you leave here, keep the ball rolling. Don't stop with TELPAS, because otherwise, if you do, you're going to find yourself crashing and burning. And we'll just try to help you put the flames out, but we don't want a lot of crashing and burning. We want you to be successful. TELPAS works so much better if you have a plan and you work your plan. If not, it can be very, very difficult, and you will hate it because it's so long, it's like it's never ending. Our next set of training dates will be February 11th to the 13th. That's where we will meet with our, we will do online sessions. So you will have an opportunity to come. So make sure that you bring your laptops for those sessions. We will send out more information as we get closer to the date about those training sessions. Karen, got other reminders? Well, look forward, if you're not, is there anybody here that did not receive an email, a reminder about these trainings? So if you're new and you signed in today, we will add you to our distribution list. If you were here previously and you did not receive like our weekly or the information about the training, then I apologize. Something happened. However, know that we send our weekly out on Thursday. If you don't receive something on Thursday, check to see, hey, did y'all send the weekly out? Like on Friday morning, did y'all send the weekly out? We typically send it out on Thursday afternoon, okay? So to make sure that you get it. Yes?
No, so for your plan, that was to get you started. We do have a soft copy. Feel free to use the soft copy. It's on our website, and we'll attach it to your weekly on Thursday. Or if I can finish out the campus PowerPoints and send them to you tomorrow, we will, and we'll attach that plan as well. But you can have the soft copy so that you can type in it and all that good stuff to use it to submit for your principal.
Any other questions before you leave us?
And the soft copy is actually already available. I'm sorry. It's on the website under the assessment tab. Click on TELPAS, and it's under forms.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for your attendance this